The crystal chandelier in the grand ballroom of the Harrington estate cast a blinding, indifferent light on Alara Vance. She stood pressed against a velvet curtain, a shadow in her own life, while her husband, Julian, held court across the room. Julian, handsome and impeccably tailored, raised his champagne flute, his voice booming with self-importance. "To my wife, Alara," he announced, his eyes not meeting hers, but sweeping the room for approval. "A woman who reminds us all that simplicity is charming, though perhaps a little too simple for the life I provide." A ripple of polite, condescending laughter followed. Alara felt the familiar, searing heat of humiliation crawl up her neck. Julian's mother, a woman whose entire existence was dedicated to making Alara feel inadequate, offered a pitying smile that was sharper than any knife. Alara's hand tightened around the stem of her wine glass, her knuckles white. It was not the insult that broke her. It was the realization that this was the last time she would allow herself to be the punchline. The tears that threatened to fall were not of sadness, but of a cold, calculated resolve. She had played the part of the meek, overlooked wife for 3 long years. Now the performance was over. Julian believed Alara's life revolved around managing their modest suburban home, a home he constantly reminded her he paid for, and waiting for his sporadic, late-night returns. He saw her in her worn cardigan, hunched over a laptop in their small, sun-drenched kitchen, and dismissed it as her little online hobby. He was right about the laptop, but profoundly wrong about the hobby. The screen did not display recipes or social media. It displayed complex financial models, real-time stock market data, and proprietary algorithms. Alara was not a housewife. She was the anonymous, fiercely private founder and CEO of Ether Corp, a global technology and investment conglomerate valued at over $50 billion. The modest house was a deliberate choice, a secure, off-the-grid location where she could run her empire in secret. Julian's real estate firm, Vance & Company, was teetering on the brink. He was too busy boasting about future deals to notice the present danger. His primary competitor had recently been acquired by a mysterious, deep-pocketed entity known only as Ether Corporation, Ether Corp. Julian scoffed to his mother. "Sounds like some Silicon Valley nonsense. They'll crash and burn." Meanwhile, Alara, now operating under the codename EV, was orchestrating a quiet, systematic acquisition of all Vance & Company's major creditors and suppliers. The stress was starting to show on Julian. His once immaculate suits were rumpled, his phone calls frantic, and the arrogance in his eyes was slowly being replaced by a desperate, hunted look. The first public sign of Alara's shift was a simple, one-line email to Julian. "I'm taking a business trip." Julian barely glanced up from his mounting pile of debt notices. "Good. Maybe you can finally learn something useful." Alara didn't reply. Instead, she boarded her private jet. The transformation was immediate and total. The drab cardigans were replaced by bespoke suits, her quiet demeanor by an aura of unshakable authority. She was no longer Alara Vance, the humiliated wife. She was EV, the formidable CEO. She was preparing the stage for Julian's downfall, ensuring every detail was perfect. The inevitable happened. Vance & Company was served with a hostile takeover notice. The buyer was Ether Corporation. Julian was in a state of panic. He and his mother met at their usual upscale cafe. "It must be Alara's fault," Julian's mother hissed. "She's useless," Julian spat. "I need to find out who the CEO of Ether is. I have one last meeting with their board to plead my case." He sat alone in the massive, dark boardroom, the empty CEO chair at the head of the table looming over him like a throne of judgment. He nervously rehearsed his speech, unaware that the final act of his humiliation was about to begin. The heavy, polished oak doors of the boardroom swung open. Julian looked up, expecting a stern-faced, middle-aged man. Instead, a figure stood silhouetted in the bright light of the hallway. As the figure stepped into the light, Julian's breath hitched. His jaw dropped, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and dawning horror. It was Alara. She walked to the head of the table, her heels clicking a precise, rhythmic beat that sounded like a death knell to Julian's career. She sat in the CEO chair, picked up a gold pen, and looked directly at her husband. "Hello, Julian," she said, her voice low and steady. "I believe you're here to discuss the acquisition of Vance and Company." Julian stammered. "Alara? What are you doing? Where is the CEO?" A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. "You're looking at her. I am Evie. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Ether Corporation. And I own everything you have." The silence in the room was absolute. He finally understood the truth. His wife, the woman he had mocked, was the architect of his ruin. Alara simply pushed two documents across the table. "The first is the final acquisition agreement," she stated. "The second is a divorce petition. I've already signed both." Julian stared at the papers, his defeat complete. Later that day, Alara walked away from the mansion. She paused at the end of the driveway, looking back at the ornate, gilded cage, and a genuine, triumphant smile finally broke through. Back in her true office, overlooking the vast, glittering city at sunset, Alara stood by the window. The humiliation was gone, replaced by the quiet, absolute triumph of a woman who had proven that the greatest power is the one no one sees coming. She was the billionaire CEO, and her new life had just begun. Call to action. If you enjoyed this story of triumph and revenge, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a twist. Let us know in the comments. What was your favorite moment of Alara's reveal?